I am Ralph Ferguson, Managing Director of the Texas Tech University Ethics Center. And today I'm visiting with Dr. Marianne Evola, who is going to share with us her expertise in the area of academic integrity and ethics.
I'm Marianne Evola. I work with the Office of the Vice President for Research, and specifically I address responsible research. So it's actually the research aspect of academic integrity.
What is responsible conduct in research?
Well, there's a lot of terms that are used interchangeably. Research integrity, research ethics, research misconduct, but the term that encompasses them all is responsible research. It's very important that students are educated on what research misconduct is, so that they know what not to do. But responsible research also encompasses the education of skills that allow them to make the right choice, as opposed to just avoid the wrong choice. And by making good choices, they'll enhance the integrity of research.
What are the core areas of responsible conduct and research, or the core areas of instruction that we want students to grab hold to?
There's traditionally 9 areas, and at Texas Tech we actually address 11 areas. At the top of the list is research misconduct, which specifically addresses that students, or not just students, but nobody should ever engage in falsification of data, fabrication of data, or plagiarism.
Okay, those are the
three major sins.
Okay, those are cardinals.
Right, exactly. And the reason that they're the cardinals is that violations of these impair the trust in the research community, because largely they are lying and stealing. We need that trust in the community for research to progress. We trust that when we share our ideas in publication, that others will give us credit for our ideas. And we also trust that when we read the literature, others have effectively reported their methods and the results so that we can build off of their ideas. A violation of this trust stalls research progress.
What are the hazards when we breach that? When we create that mistrust in our research, what are the hazards for the institution, for the student, and for the faculty?
There's a lot of costs to research misconduct, both this and of the other core areas of research. Costs can be loss of social trust. Taxpayers pay for a lot of the research that goes on in academic institutions. The reputation of the individuals and the institution. We will all be marketing either a job or a degree from Texas Tech University. The reputation of the institution is critical for our own marketability as well as the marketability of Texas Tech. People learning that this is what everybody does, and embracing bad practices, becoming bad scientists, or what I consider worse, what would be a good and ethical scientist, learning if this is what the world of research is, I want nothing to do with it. And they leave, and we've lost what would have been probably a very good and a very productive ethical researcher from our community.
What are the challenges to encourage that people do act responsibly in their research conduct?
I think the biggest challenges are competition and pressure. And I mean, both of these can be very, very good things, but in a population such as undergraduates or incoming graduate students that have largely had the pressure of taking tests and going to class, when they're now faced for the first time with professional pressure, the mentor needs to provide funding for the research group, and they need the grant, and they need the data for the grant, and they have an agenda towards a hypothesis. And the students who are inexperienced in this type of pressure start feeling it from their mentor. They want to make the mentor happy. They want to support the research ideas in the research group. And if they don't know how to address the pressure, and they're not aware of how intense the pressure can be, they can start making bad decisions. One of the examples is there's a whole book written about him. The book Plastic Fantastic deals with Henrik Schoen in the area of physics and the physical sciences. He was at Bell Labs, and his misconduct impacted the careers of countless labs and individuals across the globe. And when it was discovered and the magnitude of his misconduct was discovered, it even impacted business interests, because stock prices dropped, investors got scared, people started pulling. It's been pretty common to hear that his misconduct down there brought down Bell Labs. Now, there were a lot of factors that were
Of-
going
of
into the
course,
challenges
of
at the
course.
time.
But the point was,
Yeah.
I did want to get an example for individuals to hear that definitely if you practice or get involved with misconduct in research, there are some serious issues associated. And
Yes,
that's an excellent example.
I actually had a student once say to me, well, when people do this, there should be a blacklist. And it's interesting because National Institute of Health, NIH, the Office of Research Integrity, who investigates allegations of misconduct, when a case of misconduct is proven, they actually on their website do list the name of the individual and a description of the case. So, in fact, there are publications of guilty finding
Of people that
misconduct.
have that misconduct.
Yeah.
I guess you wouldn't know this, but I want to digress a little bit more. When people are identified for their egregious acts in research like this, are those people able to eventually come back to their science, or do we know what happened to those people? That if they've done something in error, or I guess if it was done on purpose, they're probably incarcerated. But if it's is there a way for them to return once it's happened? Does the goodwill ever come back?
I think it's one, the status of the individual, and two, the magnitude of the misconduct
Okay.
that really answers that question. I think that one of the areas where people are very susceptible is not just when they're students, but one of the points in a career where people are vulnerable to making bad decisions is in the early stages of faculty. So when you're tenure track faculty, there have been some studies to say that this is one of the most vulnerable populations. It was always thought it was graduate students and postdocs, but there have been a couple of studies now been done that says no, it's actually junior faculty that now are trying to get tenure and really pushing to get tenure. I think that in many cases they make a bad decision. Those who are caught right away, I think they're caught, they probably go through a debarment period, meaning they can't get funding for a year, possibly two, and then there may be avenues for them to return. Depends on the university and how they want to address it. Probably depends on the magnitude of the misconduct.
When we look at responsible research conduct, and we've talked about the challenge, the training for the individuals that are becoming new researchers, like those individuals that are on their first year tenure track doing research. What's the preparation there? Is there a training or some type of review that they must go through to start learning about these hazards that are out there?
Well, that's what we're trying to do. Basically, for federal funding, specifically NSF, National Science Foundation, they instituted mandatory training for all personnel working on a project except the PI. So faculty actually are not required to engage in training, although a lot of them do. But postdocs, technicians, graduate students, undergraduates, volunteers even, if they're working on an NSF project, not necessarily being paid by an NSF project, but if they're collecting data on an NSF project, they're required to engage in responsible research training. We want them to know what the rules are, but we also want to provide them with skills and an awareness of the pressure that they will be facing.
Who has responsibility in the labs or in the research foundations to help not only students but also faculty stay on the right track with the right guiding principles when they're doing research?
A lot of the pressure within research groups comes down to the faculty member to train. But we actually, and I'll be honest with you, the faculty or the mentors that are very proactive in training the research group on responsible research, or at the very least express the importance of this training and incorporating the training in your career development. Not just taking the online training and forgetting about it, but actually engaging in this throughout your career. Their students clearly have demonstrated to me that they think about these issues on a very deep level, and they've educated me on some of the ethics of the area. As faculty very much, they have so much influence over the research team. They're students and proteges. They look up to them to such a great extent that when their mentor says, this is important and you need to pay attention to this, both now and throughout your career,
Okay.
students start to incorporate it. And what our office tries to do is fill in the gaps, because we also know faculty face a lot of other pressures. They have committees that they're working on for the university, professional organizations that they're engaged with, their teaching responsibilities, their research responsibilities, grants and managing grants. Also managing a research team where everybody has a different level of experience. We're aware, just practically, that there's going to be gaps in the knowledge.
Right,
And what
right.
we really try to do is fill in those gaps and help students realize that the importance of the integrity of the research, not just the volume, not just getting the answer that the hypothesis would like,
Right.
but actually engaging in the research for the best, for the most efficacious outcome.
In the program that you're working with to encourage this kind of conduct, are we doing the things progressively to keep our students and our faculty going forward and doing truly responsible research?
It really started because they instituted federal regulations for training. And I think that there were a lot of University of Indiana, Michigan State, which were leaders in this already, and they were leaders because they had problems in the past.
Okay.
And they addressed them, and so they led this movement. But when the federal regulations were instituted that mandated it, it kind of gave all universities the opportunity to engage their academic and research scholars to really look into this and push this agenda for their students. I've seen it move from resistance to now acceptance, where not only are faculty more willing to send their students to our office, which if they're funded, they have to anyway.
Right.
In the past, it was kind of like reluctant, and now it's become much more proactive. And by doing so, by faculty being very proactive in this, the students are much more engaged as well.
It's very important that taxpayers who support research, and we're out studying for medicines and materials that are going to make our lives safer and better, that they can trust that at our universities, our public institutions, as well as our private institutions, that there is a serious effort to make certain that all of our research meets a standard that we can all be proud of. And I think that's what we're trying to do.
Yes, yes.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
It's really about respect for all aspects of research. It's respect for your research subjects, humans and animals. It's respect for your colleagues,
Okay.
students that you mentor, people that you collaborate with. It's about engaging with everybody fairly. It's about respect for the public, making sure that our discoveries serve the public and don't do harm. So much of the training is trying to get everybody to remember all of these aspects and to realize that not only do the issues that are important to them, not only they change throughout their career. So the ethics are evolving. For example,
Right.
there used to be
Yeah.
no human subjects protections, and now there are.
Right.
You know,
Right.
so not only the ethics are evolving, but the ethics that apply to them evolve as their interests evolve.
Okay.
So they have to stay up and stay current, and that's why I say you want them to incorporate this
Exactly.
in their career.